Yay! All right, we are back. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another office hour session. Um, it's me again. You have not seen me since, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, maybe. But I think my last stream was with Dimas. But I'm very happy to host Socrates again. How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Pretty good. I think that the month of June for most of our company, or basically for all the company, was very hectic and very dense, and especially for our VP of engineering. So, do you want to share a bit of your general experience of the this traumatic sixth month?
Traumatic is a heavy word, but the truth is that when we started June, we said, yeah, post June we're gonna release Novo V2, and that's pretty much it. The way I see this, it's a marathon of sprints. So
Hmm.
that was the first sprint. We said, it's not just June. There's more months to come. The truth is that Novo V2 was the best uh, and the most important release we could do,
Hmm.
and everybody was working on that. It was pretty big. And
Yeah.
I think the 80-20 rule applies, meaning that we are 80% happy with the result, but we still need to do the rest of, the other 20%.
So
Uh,
as you
yeah,
as you probably know, and it's kind of as a it's a general approach is to especially when we are talking in this kind of settings is to focus on the last favorite less favorite 20% that did
yes.
not really went well. So we might touch that as well. Um, anyway, just let's provide also a bit more context to anyone who is joining us. Basically, we have so many naming variations of the iterations of Novo of what's actually happening right now. So, Sok, would you like to go over what V2 actually means?
Yes. So, for those who are following Novo for a long time now, they probably saw something called Echo around four
Mm-hmm.
or 5 months ago. This was actually a POC. A POC meaning of a new idea that workflows need to be defined in code. Uh, the moment we had the idea, it was right before I joined. It resonated immediately with all of us. The
Mm-hmm.
reason is that defining code, defining workflows in anything rather than code is way harder. Like, okay, we can design squares and rectangles and connect them with arrows, but the truth is we are engineers. Like, it's much easier for me, much more intuitive to just write a bunch of code with
Yeah.
conditionals, for loops, and consider that a workflow.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, every piece of code we write is a workflow to an extent.
Right.
So it started with Echo. Echo was a POC level kind of implementation,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there we switched to what was the other one? There was a name for 2 days. I don't remember it now. And then we ended up
Actually,
with,
not sure.
yeah, with Novo V1, but then it's actually Novo V2 because at the time we were Novo V024. But Novo V2 feels more like okay, we are changing direction, meaning we strongly believe that workflows need to be defined in code.
Mm-hmm.
Workflows need to be owned by those who implement them, and they
Mm-hmm.
actually need to run in their apps where
Mm-hmm.
data is very close by, and they don't have to sync data with us anymore, and they don't have to basically be restricted by all
Mm-hmm.
the limitation and a workflow editor or a WYSIG, if I call it, poses for them.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So basically, the V2, like the Novo V2, at least as we are referring to this right now, it doesn't really represented or visualized or even named anywhere like that. It's just the jargon we use internally to define and to separate kind of the phases that the product was in. Again, this is kind of internal jargon, but the V2 or the way of consuming and interacting with Novo is right now basically just switch or been just slightly pivoted to focus much more heavily into kind of building code first workflows, which is pretty amazing. The fact that, for example, when I am now able to not really try and replicate visually those kind of you know, squares and components,
conditions,
the
steps,
condition exactly,
restrictions. Yeah.
because that was sort of the way to really replicate and consume and kind of implement workflows that I saw that are working somewhere else, and then I need to interact with the dashboard and basically kind of build this with the React Flow kind of mechanism that we had in place. But right now, like once we understand the syntax of how to structure every step and what are the components and the properties and kind of the even we got into that a bit deeper in the probably previous streams, but basically kind of those step inputs and those kind of stuff. It's much easier to not just build, but also to share and consume by others, because it's basically you're copying a code snippet and
Yes.
putting it in a, you know, in your program, which helps us to distribute things much more efficiently and to, you know, between the community, basically share the workflows that just work and much more straightforward. And I think, yeah, this is definitely amazing. Now, since we finished with the kind of the V2 sort of deployment or kind of putting it out there, what was your focus and what the team is focusing on mainly?
So the V2 release was actually the first of many releases. We constantly release more improvements on that, and in fact, that was, let's say, it's not the we didn't end with a release. We actually begin the new era with that release, meaning there's more things to come in V2. And basically, the pillar now in V2 is the Novu framework npm package. That's where it all starts. Like the code that you define starts from there. Post-release, we had to do a lot of bug bashing, a lot of bug fixing, a lot of debugging. Now it's not so intense anymore, but at the same time, we also had two other very very big projects. The one of them we talked about in our previous session. It's about the new inbox component that we're currently working on, and is expected to launch in August. And the other thing that's actually the interesting bit, and it's almost ready to ship probably by the end of this week or Monday tops, is basically we are switching an authentication provider, an authentication authorization provider, meaning for the Novu cloud offering, the Novu V2 cloud offering, we are switching from an in-house implementation to an authentication provider that's, as far as I believe, the most comprehensive one in the market, and that is Clerk. That was a very big project because, you know, it's not, Novu is not a greenfield project. Right? There's a lot of history in there. There's a lot of features. There's a lot of code that needs to be migrated. And we were also, you know, we needed to take care of the open source version of Novu.
Yeah.
And although we want to get the SaaS benefits that Clerk offers in the cloud, at the same time, we needed to create an, let's say, a good enough adaptation of Clerk for the open source community. So we didn't only build the new integration, we actually revamped drastically the in-house authentication solution we have for the community edition. Both at the
Can
same
you
time.
can you maybe because this is a very like as someone who was basically working mainly on documenting the case study right now for this, and I hope that we in the upcoming week or so would be able to actually share it, and every person who is kind of really interested and want to get into the nitty gritty could just go there and really just read the over like the high level process of what the team needed to go through in order to implement that. It's very fascinating and interesting. But so could you maybe share the a bit more on the background that led to make that decision? Because everything starts basically from identifying a need or a feature request. How it came to be, we even decided to consider offloading a huge aspect actually of our in-house solution and offering into kind of this third-party product.
Absolutely. So I think Pawan put it very nicely in the comments. Don't roll your own oath. And if I want to generalize that, Novu is in the build versus buy business. We do it for notifications. Clerk, that was my previous company before I joined Novu, and I started there as a founding engineer, ended up the VP of Eng, and spent there almost 4 years. Was in the same business, build versus buy. And they're in the authentication or authorization space. Uh, the best example that usually resonates with almost every developer of why you should follow that path when it comes to auth or when it comes to notifications for Novus case is basically Stripe. Like, no one wants to store credit cards and payment information when they're building any kind of application that requires payments. So the same thing should apply to auth. The same thing should apply to notifications. Why? Because these are no, sorry for that. Because these are cross-cutting concerns. I always have trouble saying that.
No, it's fine.
At
A lot of
once.
C's there.
Yeah, exactly. So these are effectively cross-cutting concerns that, in fact, the infra is very similar across every SaaS. So why spending time working on them instead of actually buying them? Buy from the experts, let the experts build the best version of it, and just use it and focus on what matters for our product. That being said, auth is very, very sensitive. Like, it's security critical. It's very hard to build. Don't be fooled by it's just a username password form that all of us build at least once, even if
Yeah.
even when we were at university, it was like a very standard exercise for during a development class. Right now, I mean, in 2024, the expectations by customers are very, very high. Like MFA, OAuth, session management, MFA with authenticator apps or SMS, email verification flows, SAM LSSO, RBAC management, biometrics, fingerprint identifications, Google One Tap, like all these acronyms around auth are expected by customers in every app. Like, if you sign in an app that doesn't have like MFA, immediately you're like, okay, this product is not as mature as I would like it to be.
Yeah, or not as secure as you would like it to be, maybe.
Exactly. So the expectations are very, very high. And the truth is that if you want to roll out your own solution, it's a never-ending game. Like, you're gonna spend at least 6 months to do these things, and then you will still maintain them and need to be on top of them. So since we're in the same business and we strongly believe in this pattern, in the buy versus build pattern, that's what we did.
And okay, so for example, let's say in our audience right now, or maybe someone who will watch this kind of post this live event, might be some CTO, another VP of engineering or something, that they are also focusing on a solution that essentially goes with the same sort of approach, build versus buy, but just for something else, maybe for for storing images or kind of something,
Yeah.
And
let's say asset management in general.
let's go with asset management. So they're focusing on assets management, and then they need to start and build this kind of comprehensive solution and user experience. But I guess the thought is always kind of you start with the bare minimum that you need. Like
Correct.
this is why we did not start with Clerk right away. But in contra like in comparison, maybe we did not try to build our own database, for example, when we try to
Yeah, yeah.
build the notification infrastructure. Like we used MongoDB for that, and we leverage kind of other solutions, tested solution for that, like because we wanted to focus on what's already there. But we did not start with Clerk right away. So when do you think in the development process and from kind of the initial process of kickstarting a company, a solution, to actually consider switching and considering other third-party providers that will take certain aspects and just abstract this away from your offer?
Well, the answer to this question is, the golden standard of engineering. It depends. For Clerk use case, in particular, there were many aspects.
Yeah.
First of all, Clerk and Novo started about the same time. Novo is a bit younger,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't as mature enough at the time. But there's also the open source aspect because Clerk's API is not open source.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, even if we had to pick Clerk from an early stage, we would still invest on the community in the open source aspect and create an open source uh, solution for this.
Mm-hmm.
However, let's say we start a new project tomorrow together.
Yeah.
I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that, yeah, we buy as much as we can anything that's not related to our core business. And
Mm.
of authentication authorization is the golden, like, there is no single SaaS out there that doesn't need authentication.
Mm-hmm.
So, or DevTool or B2C or B2B2C, like any type of application needs to identify the current user and potentially the current organization.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I'm biased, I know it. Clerk is the most comprehensive solution. For
Mm-hmm.
the sake of being fair, we evaluated another provider at the time, mostly also because I was curious, to evaluate both from the outside. But I think it's the most
You
comprehensive
can
one.
name them if you really don't want to. You
No, no,
can
it's
skip
fine.
that.
It's fine. It's fine. The thing that I want to emphasize on is basically what we discussed in the previous session, that Clerk is pioneering and is basically one of the first companies to promote the idea that component is worth 1,000 APIs. And
Mm-hmm.
their main product is served via component. So in Clerk, we didn't get an auth provider. We didn't get what we call an IDP, an identity provider.
Mm-hmm.
We got a sign in React component, we got a sign up React component, we got a user profile and organization profile, and
Mm-hmm.
we embedded them in our React application. In the
Mm-hmm.
same way, we want our customers to embed our existing notification center on the new inbox we are building.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just about the features of auth; it was also about the mentality. We believe in the buy versus build, but we strongly believe that components are the future, and products that are packaged via components give way more time and much better DX to the end
Mm-hmm.
developer rather than anything else. Because at the end of the day, you interact with your users. Your users need to interact with something. It has to be on the screen. Like an API is not enough. It has to be on the screen. It
Right.
has to be rasterized in pixels and be clickable and have sections and titles and text and inputs and forms and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So that's why. And Stripe was the first company basically to suggest and make this pattern successful. Stripe checkout
Mm-hmm.
is the best example. You start something, you get Stripe checkout. This is not an embeddable. Stripe also has embeddables. That's not the point right now. But you don't actually, when you start the product, you never think of, okay, you know what? Let's build a credit card widget. Like,
Yeah.
I once did that. But the truth is that we did it on top of Stripe. They didn't have Stripe elements at the time. We needed
Mm-hmm.
a very custom UI for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
And we used their headless SDK, JavaScript SDK for that. But
Mm-hmm.
that was a very, very, very specific use case. In every other use case, in every other product I've built, it's always, yeah, let's use Stripe checkout to start.
So, like, if I understand correctly, and this is something that I actually wanted to also kind of bring up and talk slightly a bit, is the approach of headless libraries or kind of headless solution, where this is basically offers you this very customizable development experience where you're basically connecting kind of the design that you really want and your particular use case to the endpoints of the provider that offers this headless library or something. But I sense much stronger from you that kind of if you are really want to focus on the core value of the product and the core value of what the company and the solution is about, then maybe going with the headless kind of versions of those components is not the best play to go with. Am I right? Am I getting the sentiment
Yes,
right?
yes. I think we discussed about this in the last session as well. It's basically the layered cake. Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
if you get the fully fledged components, you get an off-the-shelf solution. Usually, you should have it up and running in minutes or maybe in an hour or two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where buy versus build signs. And
Mm-hmm.
then the product evolves.
Mm-hmm.
Opinions become harder and stronger. You have your own theme, you have your own look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
And there is always a limit in this off the shelf solution, and you need more customization. And at that point, it's very crucial to have another layer that's not, extremely low level, meaning you need to start digging the API and figure out everything from scratch and reverse engineer the API and build on top of that. But you
Mm-hmm.
need to have headless APIs. For example, in React, a headless API comes with hooks,
Mm-hmm.
or a vanilla JS API that can be used across frameworks, or directives, or anyway, name it
Mm-hmm.
any way you like, where you can actually say, you know what, I'm going to use this with my own UI library, and I can build something more custom and something more tailored to my needs.
Mm-hmm.
But right
Yeah.
now, I'm in a different state as a company.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, it means that I already built something. I already give value to some customers. I'm in a different funding state. I
Mm-hmm.
have a different team size. Initially, things are small. Every minute counts. Then
Mm-hmm.
things become more stable as the company and the product evolves. So the whole experience follows basically the life cycle of the business and the product maturity.
Mm.
So that's very very important to understand. And the other thing that's very important, it applies to those who build off the shelf products like Clerk or Novu, is
Mm-hmm.
that the product itself needs to be built out of its own building blocks. For example, in Novu, we will provide a new set of React hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we're also giving, and we will, React components.
Mm-hmm.
We should try to reuse the hooks as much as possible because it's actually us dogfooding the headless solution to provide a UI solution. And if we want to
Mm.
provide a more advanced UI solution and we have UI building blocks, we should also reuse those to build a more advanced UI component. So that's why I've said it's the layered cake kind of approach,
Mm-hmm.
because that way the developer experience is also not very foreign to the end user. I mean, to me, if I make a sign-in component or an inbox component work, I should invest a little bit more and know how to do it with a hook. It shouldn't be okay. I need to start from scratch and understand something completely different.
Mm.
There needs to be a continuation in this whole process, and that's why, based on the previous question that you asked, it really really depends on the state of the company. But in essence, if you start something new, this evolution of how you use components, then we go to more customization, then you go to another level of customization.
Mm-hmm.
This evolution is basically what follows, with what goes hand in hand with the product and the company evolution. In Novus case, it was a bit different because the product was already mature. We had a lot of stuff to migrate, and actually, what we had is that a comprehensive auth solution that we picked,
Mm-hmm.
and an in-house auth solution that was working, but wasn't as comprehensive when it comes to feature set. So
Yeah.
we had to elevate this and bring them, create some parity between them.
Yeah.
So in our case, we worked during this big project. We worked more on the community stuff. I mean, funnily enough, we worked more on the community stuff.
Mm-hmm. To basically just maintain the same, like to match the level of connectivity that the more comprehensive solution, like aka Clerk in that particular use case, sets. Like they have their way of how they work, and if we want to migrate into their way and to their strategy of doing stuff, we need to elevate and to match the language that they are communicating potentially with us during the implementation. Am I correct?
Yes, kind of. Although it was a bit different in our case, the reason is that yes, we had to elevate our own implementation, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't blindly follow their implementation because it didn't always make sense for our use cases. So
Mm-hmm.
the truth is that we had two solutions in place, and we had to find the common denominator, but the common denominator not the minimum common denominator, it was the maximum common denominator. That's why we elevated the community to match the Clerk stuff. And you can actually see this, all of this is open source now. You can see it in the public repo.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually see that we created an interface, and based on the deployment, enterprise cloud offering VS self-service, self-hosted, we inject the necessary implementation. But for the consumer, the coders of the coders of Novu
Mm-hmm.
consuming this implementation, it's one thing, it's one interface.
Right. It doesn't really change. It's kind of just what
Yeah,
behind the counter has changed.
exactly. They both return the current user and the current organization that are both necessary for the app to operate.
And
Under the
maintaining
hood,
the user session details, basically.
exactly. Under the hood, way different story, a lot of
Yeah.
work, extremely interesting project on both sides. The Clerk team was very close to us. I mean, okay, I also pull some strings.
All
It's
right.
yeah, it would be unfair to to not mention that. But it was a very interesting project. I'm very happy with the results so far. We still need to. There's still some rough edges we need to iron out this week, and we're pretty much ready.
Before we will continue this conversation, I just want to thank again everyone who decided to allocate some of their time and join our live stream. And we encourage you to send any question that you might have regarding the particular stuff that we're talking about right now, but it could be kind of more broader, future looking questions that you might be interested to get answers for from Socrates that we will try to answer in this session. So feel free to just go and put the questions in the YouTube chat. This is kind of the main interactive channel that we have to see what you're typing. So if you have something, just put it there. Now, I know that, getting back to what we are discussing, basically one of the biggest challenges that probably each kind of solution that has or operates on top of a database, which probably almost every solution, like if you need to manage properties, users, configuration, etc., it's supposed to be stored somewhere. So I guess one of the big challenges that we had is the sync between, for example, Clark's database that we want to offload all the authentication logic and user and organization management, and make sure that it will stay synced with our database. So how did we even approach that, and how it looked like at the beginning, even initially?
Okay, that's a very interesting question because the truth is that Clerk and Novu and every other type of system that software is using
Mm-hmm.
is actually posing the same challenges of any distributed system. Meaning, at the end of the day, there are data. These data have an owner, and they
Mm-hmm.
have replicas across this mesh of services that constitute this distributed system.
Mm-hmm.
So one key thing that we did is that for those who are familiar with Novu, we do have a users and organizations and members collection in the in the MongoDB Novu database.
Mm-hmm.
The key thing was that okay, we cannot remove that for many reasons, from the open source offering to that's how the whole app operates and they need to fetch stuff. So we basically have to rewrite everything if we want to make it stateless. But we
Mm-hmm.
had to move that from this is not the source of truth, but this is an online, fully synchronized local cache of user and organizational members for the
Mm-hmm.
enterprise, for the cloud offering. For the community offering, it's a source of truth. So this was the first thing we had to realize, and basically the thing we had to convey to the team I worked with, who basically did the project, because they used to do something else till that point. They used to treat that as a source of truth. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Then we apply all the traditional and standard ways of synchronizing distributed systems. We have webhooks, of course, between both systems, trying to sync changes and mutations. We implemented some small saga patterns here and there. That's another good way of basically ensuring that things and changes happening at one system are propagating throughout the whole service mesh.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, the other thing that's very, very exciting is that we actually try to use our database for what it's best for and Claire for what
Mm-hmm.
it's best for. Meaning, there's some user data that are very crucial to session management authentication.
Mm-hmm.
We, we delegated them to Clerk in the same way you delegate credit card numbers to Stripe. But there's also some other user data regarding preferences, onboarding criteria, notification stuff that are more relevant to the Novo use case, and Clerk doesn't actually care about. We kept those in our own database, and we actually introduced we kind of altered the collections so that this discrimination is very very clear to someone who actually opens the code base today, and they
Mm-hmm.
can understand okay, authentication user data belong to this platform, the rest of user data belongs to that platform, and
Mm-hmm.
these systems need to work hand in hand in order for the whole system to work.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, I I understand that. Now, if we are looking few months ahead, or maybe even right now, we look at our current roadmap of what we want to offer and build and basically improve the experience with new features for our users. Do you foresee kind of anything um, that could indicate that we will offload or abstract away other parts from our main service again?
Well, we're already doing it with Stripe, for example, for billing.
Mm-hmm.
uh, there was another very interesting internal conversation because of Novo V2. There was this need of Novo V2 essentially as we've discussed is the framework and the workflow engine that was already present since Novo V1.
Mm-hmm.
The workflow engine with Novo V2 evolves into what's called a durable execution engine. That is basically a machine that can run
Mm-hmm.
workflows that can last long. For example, it's not just a workflow that executes all at once and then it completes. A workflow can run for a month or a year or 20 years or 100 years. That would be funny. But yeah, I wonder we have a workflow in our database with such big delay that will complete in
Mm-hmm.
100 years from now. So this is what's a durable execution, like meaning this needs state and memory and
Mm-hmm.
needs to ensure that things run where they have to run. But as the workflow and the evolve, as the number of workflows evolve, more memory is needed. For example, if you have 5 customers that run workflows that last a month for a monthly
Mm-hmm.
newsletter, if we have 1 million customers doing the same thing, then we need to remember way more workflow runs. for
Mm-hmm.
a long time.
Right.
So there is a lot of solutions out there focusing just on that problem: durable execution, temporal IO, ingest, trigger, and a couple of others. I'm just naming the ones that come to mind first now.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a debate of, you know what, we're in the notification space and we're doing a very specific form of durable execution for workflows, for notification workflows. Should we maybe offload the engine as well and use a solution like that and then build on top of it for our own notification needs? And that conversation didn't last long. And I think that it was the right choice. The reason is that that part, the notification part, is our core business.
Right.
So there is a barrier when it comes to how much should I offload. We need to own this in order to offer the best experience for our customers. We need to own
Mm.
this in order to make sure we're building it the right way and the way we want it. We don't want to be dependent by anybody else. So at that point, we said, yes, there's 50 open source durable execution engines, 10 closed source that are actually great companies, but I think this one needs to be built by us because we need the notification specific one and we know better than anybody else how to do it.
So basically, the fact that, like, even though we could get to the point where we maybe think about offloading and abstracting away particular aspects of the solution, although it might kind of make slight sense, saving costs, maintenance, and kind of all those kind of stuff. Um, the the thinking process here should always kind of come from the point of how connected this is to the core value that we offer. Is it correct?
Exactly. How connected and how much control you want to have over it. It's
I
a
see.
trade off between control and trust. Because Stripe, we trust it to handle our credit cards. Clerk, we trust it
Yeah.
to handle our users. Notifications, this is our business.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I would like maybe to go to like try two thought processes, like thought exercises. The first one, I think that it would be kind of an interesting way, just kind of as a bit more, as a general approach of how you would build this asset management solution, for example,
Okay.
because it did cut my attention and kind of cut my thought.
Now I planted the seed, and now
Yeah.
you want to start the startup.
Exactly. We're going to have kind of a dollar company to know. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so if you would decide, for example, today to build an asset management solution, how would you approach it from the get-go? Basically, kind of breaking down all the needed components or the components that you think that are generally used or should be used everywhere, and how you would differentiate kind of what will be built in-house and what will be like an instant buy versus build kind of option.
I have a very practical way to measure this, especially at an early stage, so that you don't have to think too much about it. Design, let's say you start building your application. You
Mm-hmm.
start also designing the mockups.
Mm-hmm.
90% of the time, you're going to come up with a top nav bar.
Mm-hmm.
Compare this nav bar with 10 other products that you are actually using.
Mm-hmm.
If you see similarities there, buy them. Don't build them. I give you examples. User button, authentication, bell button, inbox, notifications, search, which user on the top level, global search. You can use Algolia, you can use
Algolia,
LiveSense,
yeah.
you can use
Mm-hmm.
20 other solutions. Maybe there's billing there. You can use Stripe, you can use ChargeBee, you can use anything you like. So start from the top nav, from the top header of
Mm-hmm.
your app. Everything else is your core business.
Mm.
It's a very naive way to approach this, because you might come up with an exotic design that doesn't have a nav bar, but you get what I'm saying. Like maybe it's a sidebar, it's not a nav bar, but you get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
most of these concerns are common across a lot of tools. There is
Mm-hmm.
not a single, for example, resource management tool. It's either a CRM, an applicant tracking system, an HRIS that doesn't have a collaboration aspect nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's great companies that actually build live collaboration components,
Mm-hmm.
comment components. See the cursor of your team member, your co-worker live in page, and basically collaborate live on something.
Mm-hmm.
Even live notification components to Excel or a live feed. So start from there, find the common things, try to buy them as much as possible. It goes without saying that buying also means that you need to have a budget, because
Yeah.
either it's a time issue. You're gonna spend a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more money in order to ship your product faster.
Yeah.
You can build all of these things. Every developer can build all of these things. The question is how fast and how will the final result look like in terms of quality.
Yeah.
Again, Google standards uh, are expected by all the end users today.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, we have actually here a pretty interesting question asked by Richard. Is what about outsourcing REST API SDK? Like, it's something that like we will going to tease a bit our our audience and our users, but yeah, we basically right now working on offloading and use a third party SDK generation provider. But why, SOC, do you think this is appropriate to be outsourced and use third party solution and not really try and maintain in-house?
It's a great question, and the truth is that that's another thing that we did. We are actually open sourced our SDK generation, and we're planning to do the same with Docs.
Mm-hmm.
We're using Speakeasy for that. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very hot space for every dev tool. The truth is that it seems like an easy problem, but it's way harder than it looks, especially if you're aiming for quality, for
Mm-hmm.
quality auto-generated output. I think because of how hard it is, it goes without saying that you need to open source it, because our main business is to make sure we create the necessary APIs and the most polished API to drive these SDKs. The SDK is just it's just a tool that you need to have.
Mm-hmm.
It gives great DX, and we can actually work on top of the auto-generated one in case the auto-generated one doesn't give the DX that we want to offer.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of this work, like the heavy lifting, needs to be automated because it's not
Mm-hmm.
super productive. And imagine doing that for 10 languages. It means that we need to
Yeah.
maintain a team just for that, and maybe the team is not even enough. And it's a cross-functional team because we need a Python expert and a Go expert and a TypeScript expert and a Kotlin expert and a Java expert and a PHP expert in the same team. And it's fine, it can work, but there is another expert in the field, and it's called Speakeasy, Fern, Stainless. There's more.
Yeah.
I'm just naming those that, you know, the
Yeah.
ones that we actually tried and evaluated. Um, so yeah, it goes without saying that it's a very good idea to do so.
So to those who maybe do not know how was till this point approach, is that we try to maintain with the community most of the kind of other languages SDKs, like for Python, for Svelte, for like we just had a bunch of those. But the problem is like the general notion was that we want to distribute and like basically give the opportunity to developers from other languages and frameworks to leverage what we have built. Therefore, we need those kind of SDK wrappers for what we build initially. But the problem is mainly the quality, basically maintaining the quality of the API and endpoints and the SDK overall just wasn't enough. And we got to the point where, all right, we need to, like, we want to provide the best developer experience. This is clearly not going in the right direction. Of course, we are so thankful and very appreciate all the community members that put any minute of work into maintaining those SDKs. But unfortunately, and maybe not unfortunately, but as we want to progress and to keep perfecting what we are offering as a notification infrastructure, we also need to be honest with our users and with ourselves that we are providing the best quality of everything in every front and for every language that we officially saying that we are supporting. So that's kind of the approach that we went with, and I think it's a very interesting one. And I think that we also will have a case study and kind of best practices session on how we would do it if we would need to start it again. Like, what would be the approach?
Absolutely.
I think.
Actually, we should do a session about that because it's a very hard problem. Like a lot of people downplay it, but it's very hard if you want to do it right. And one of the things we really like one of the key factors why we chose Speakeasy at the end of the day is that I feel that they share the same passion about the X, especially in our V2 era. Every line counts, every byte counts, every naming counts. All of these small details make the big difference at the end of the day. The other thing about the community is that we've done a lot of work towards direction, but we're still using the community. And as you said, we're very thankful for these contributions and basically for all the code that brought us here.
Yeah.
The interesting bit is that right now we would love to funnel the power of the community for some more core aspects of the product, not the necessary plumbing.
Yeah.
And there is, a lot of interesting things are coming soon towards the direction. I think the best example, especially in Novo, is that the providers, like we have an amazing list of providers driven by the community. And the main reason we have that is because the abstraction, the interface abstraction that we give the community in order to build the provider is very good. People get it, they're not afraid, they jump into it and they build it. In the Novo V2 era, where the workflows is defined in code, you can do the same with workflows, with step controls, with how you generate content components. I already said too much, but you know where this is going.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. And we could even tease a bit more into, like, basically this could become a huge marketplace.
Yes.
But again,
don't say marketplace. A huge gallery. I like
gallery. All right.
Gallery.
Let's go with gallery. Right. Gallery. Sorry.
Gallery.
I'm out. Yeah. All right. We have this. We have a question here from Risto. Before that, I also saw here a comment from Nolan from Speakeasy. Yeah, I happened to wander in here at the right time. We from Speakeasy, so Nolan is from Speakeasy. Love working with the Novo team. You give us great feedback that pushes us to build the best product possible. Thank you so much. It's really amazing coincidence that you happen to hop in the right moment. Now back to Risto question. How this approach will affect the open source version. So I guess I will try to position this question kind of in the best light possible, or kind of just in the best context. So right now we are abstracting away, we decided to abstract away the user management aspect of Novo. And we might choose to do that for other stuff, maybe around authorization components or something like that, maybe in the future. I don't know. Like, basically, it would be much much more focused and driven by feature requests and like user needs that we would like to meet. But Sok, if you could maybe really say how do we approach the separation or even the development of maintaining the open source version and keep on enhancing that, along with also improving the other core offers and maybe a separation. I don't know, just address that the way you can.
Yeah, this is a very good question. I'm actually glad that it came up because I can totally understand that. Okay, the community is noticing a shift towards towards the cloud offering, but the truth is, and I told this before, is that we worked more on the community authentication version in order to make this release possible rather than the clerk authentication. So right now the open source remains fully functional. In fact, there is a new revamped authentication and session management mechanism built in with the same features as the old one, but actually way better in terms of how it's built and how it's implemented. And for those who want to use the open source and self-hosted, they have two options. Either use the community one or use the clerk one, and actually, okay, maybe they need the clerk account for that, but if that's the case, talk to us and we'll figure out the best way to make this not a problem for your deployment. But the truth is, the reason we chose the provider is because the cloud offering is basically where most of our users are. Like the self-hosting is for specific use cases, as we say it, and gives you the power to basically have more control. But for those who don't want to do that, and that's the majority of our users, cloud is what we offer. And in the cloud, when you have a cloud multi-tenant offering like we do, you need different methods of authentication. You also need more RBAC. You probably need SAML SSO. You probably need way more secure session guarantees like MFA and fingerprints and biometric identifications. So that's why we said, okay, we're going to use a trusted vendor there. When you self-host, you can probably self-host in a private network, or you can self-host for your project locally in Docker. Like, you don't need all of these things. Like, you don't need to set up you don't need to set up SAML to do this to test Novo locally. That's why we are and we will fully support the community edition no matter what we do. And that's why, funnily enough, most of the work happened on the community edition for this release because we were 100% mindful of that.
Yeah. So I think that we will start to wrap up the session, but the last question that I will ask you, Sok, is I know that we kind of slightly touched the options and the ways that the community might be involved even more into basically the core value that Novo provides in basically creating like ready to use workflows that are outlined and ready for deployment with actual proven business use cases that other could use and share that experience, which in that sense would probably just help everyone, not just kind of Novo users or community people who are self-hosting, but basically everyone, raising the standards of the notification experience that companies and products might have. Because if
Correct.
you have the opportunity to show how your communication, for example, with your bank or with any app that you are using could be improved by just introducing a very straightforward workflow that already defined with code, we are raising the standards together of how the quality of communication will happen in the future. So this is kind of where I think, and I think that Sok believe kind of the same way with me, that this is kind of where it's all eventually going.
Absolutely. I think the easiest way to describe this is that let's imagine, I mean, Linear is a project management tool, but it's getting a lot of traction because of how polished it is. It's modern, it's fresh, and it's very tailored to developers in general, like software development projects.
Yeah.
So imagine, for example, Linear has notifications. They're probably built in. And imagine that there is a ticket and there is a comment. And I'm not sure how they do it now, but let's say that I mention Emil for something. Immediately, Emil gets a notification via email or a push notification first, and then if Emil doesn't reply to the push notification in the first 5 minutes, then he gets an email, and if he doesn't reply to that, then after a day we send a daily digest with all the mentions that Emil has. So this is all product specking.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very soon this will be able to be defined as a workflow recipe.
Interesting.
And then
That's the name that we are going with right now.
yeah, we said gallery before, now we just saying recipe. But in a workflow definition, and then when I build something similar to that, I can, as you said, I can start from that and even improve it further. Because now collectively, we set the new baseline, and the new baseline suddenly is not here anymore, it's here.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna go here, and it's gonna go here. So that's what it is all about.
Mm-hmm.
So to an extent, the buy versus build paradigm promotes that as well. Because in a month from now, Clerk will probably release passkeys, let's say. They have them already, but let's say they didn't have them.
Mm-hmm.
Us and every customer of Clerk are getting them automatically.
Yes.
Same applies to us. The inbox.
Mm-hmm.
The inbox component that we're currently working on is ready to be released. Then we're going to add extra components and extra functionality to that. For example, snoozing a notification.
Mm-hmm.
This will automatically be delivered to all of our users. So right now, the new baseline is not here anymore. It's a step higher, and a step higher, and a step higher.
Yeah.
And the key thing here for every successful dev tools is two things. Whenever we release an improvement, either a bug fix or a big major feature, we also need to minimize the work that our customers need to do to get it. Because if we release something and then we go and we tell our customers, now you need 3 weeks to implement this, it's all over. Okay, now we need to do another project, allocate resources, plan it, spec it, test it, implement it, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it has to be as transparent as possible. And for those who choose not to do anything and hop on the wagon, it should be 100% backwards compatible. Because there's people like that. There will be always customers that say, you know what, I'm happy with what I have. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Don't force me to do unnecessary work because I don't need it. Stripe is the best example of this. They still have API versions. The Stripe API version is very, very good. They still have API versions that run from 2014 to 2015. They're still fully functional. Do they have all the latest features? No. But people who use them are happy. They don't need the latest features if they're still there. They're happy with what we have.
It's actually bringing us kind of full circle to the reason why it's much better and much smarter kind of looking ahead and long term to implement a component, ready to use component that could be easily updated with every version that this component providers releases, rather than implement your custom headless solution that then you need to try and keep up to date and then try to enhance and build additional features into your UI, etc., etc. So this is really kind of bring us like a full circle, and I think that is a great moment to wrap this particular session. Again, thank you everyone who joined this stream. I had a lot of fun. I was just very fascinating, and it was very interesting to me to talk to you, Sock, for about all this and basically get your ideas, your perspective on this. Really, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks for this session. I'm looking forward to the next one. Uh, I think we had a very exciting June and slightly calmer yet extremely exciting July.
Yeah,
As I said, it's a marathon of sprints. We already ran one or two sprints, but we have very 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 big things coming very soon.
absolutely. And if any of those who are watching this post this live stream or even right now, if you want us to discuss something, to share a case study, to go over some particular decisions that we were making along the way, it doesn't really matter the timeline. Feel free to reach out to us mainly through Discord or even just tag us on Twitter or something. And we will make sure to address that and consider really doing another live session or any session and creating content about this. So again, thank you everyone so much. Thank you to the team behind the scenes who are supporting this session, and see you all next time. Bye bye everyone.